I remember everything very clearly. It's complete darkness, it's complete fear, it's living in complete paranoia, and being surrounded by people that love you, and yet you're scared of them. Sometimes I look back and I'm like, I can't believe I made it through.
Giulia and I met the first week of college.
We lived in the same dorm room. He was on the 7th floor, I was on the 6th floor.
That was it. We were 18 years old, and since then we've been together.
This is when he proposed to me. We were 23.
We moved to California the day after we got married from the East Coast. Giulia got a new job, and she was really excited to work at the company.
I always was able to pick up things and just go with it, whether it was a new job or an old job. And so when I found myself struggling for the first time in my life, I couldn't get through an email. It would take me 3 hours to draft an email. I would get up in the morning and I would find every excuse to skip work. It just happened so quickly that within 6 weeks, I completely spiraled. Not only experienced depression, suicidality. For the first time, I wanted to kill myself. Like I never even knew what that meant. I didn't have any history of mental illness.
Giulia was just not sleeping. She was really agitated about everything. She was talking about some really scary things and believing some things that were clearly not real. And that's where we were really shocked to the point of, okay, we need to all get in the car, go to the hospital, and whatever happens there, happens there.
My first trip to the psych ward, it's like entering a different realm of existence. You're stripped away from your life and you're brought to this hospital. You're locked into it, you can't leave. And I remember pacing the halls and they would pump me with medications that I didn't want to take. It was the most terrifying experience of my life.
Giulia was hospitalized for 23 days, and for most of them, they didn't know what she had. Then, after the hospital, she was put into an outpatient program, which for most people is anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. And Giulia ended up in that program for 9 months because of how prolonged the depression was after the hospital.
I must have been on dozens of different medications to figure out what was going to work best for me. They put me on one where I gained 70 pounds in 6 weeks. I just felt so out of control of my own life, and this added layer of being not in control of even my body, it was just devastating to me.
That was, I think, probably the hardest for me, to see her on these pills, to have to give her these pills and have the faith that they were helping her. I spent pretty much all day with Giulia, and she was slowed down by her medications, and she was going to sleep really early. I've never felt more lonely at any point in my life. I found online about this support group, which was for family members who were caring for someone with a mental illness, but I just didn't find my home there because almost everyone there was supporting a child who had a mental illness. I even went online trying to find people who were writing about something like this, and I found that there was almost nothing about being in love with someone who's in a mental health crisis. After the first hospitalization and then subsequent depression, as soon as Giulia got the right chemical combination, she snapped out of it almost as quickly as she fell into it. And once that happened, we were really just able to get back to our life as best we could. We got back into work. We wanted to have a child. The doctors gave us the full blessing to do so. So we had this little boy. And then our plan was that I was actually going to be the stay-at-home dad. And Giulia, who always loved work, was going to go back to work. And so when our son was 5 months old, Giulia got back into work, and 3 weeks later, she was back in the hospital.
After my first hospitalization, my official diagnosis was major depression with psychotic features. And it wasn't until actually my second hospitalization that I got the diagnosis of bipolar.
The second hospitalization was probably the hardest. We were parents. We were dealing with the realization that this was not a one-time thing. But I would say it was getting out of the second hospitalization and in the time after that we started to feel like we could be a little more in control. Go. So Giulia did have a third episode. She was hospitalized again. For whatever reason, it was her shortest. And the depression that was after it was also the shortest. She didn't have to quit her job. And so it actually felt, in some weird way, a little bit triumphant because it didn't bulldoze through our life.
I've learned to accept that I am bipolar, that I have this mental illness every day for the rest of my life. And what it entails is potential hospitalizations every few years and not being so terrified and so scared of them. And knowing that you need to put your child first and your family first, regardless of how scary it is to be in a psych ward. That was a choice I made and a choice I will continue to make.
We're sitting here, Jonas is almost 5. We have no idea how many more of these lie ahead of us. It could be 0, it could be a dozen. But I think we both know that if it happens, we are gonna get through it at least. It's gonna be ugly, right? It's gonna be heartbreaking, but I don't think have this sense of futility and defeat that we felt in previous ones, because we've just learned to accept this is what our life is now, and that's okay. And we can still have amazing moments and make it through.
Hello Today fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking that button down there and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives.